Some exchange betting companies run short-lived promotions, like months-long offers of low commission. At BetDAG, we wanted to change the way we did things, so we set our commission at 2% permanently. That's 2% on football, horse racing, golf, almost any sport. 2%. That's just one way that BetDAG is changing for the better. For the better, like you. BetDAG, the 2% commission exchange.
Over 18s only, please gamble responsibly.
Hello and welcome to the ROKER Report Extra podcast. Once again, it's me, James Lowson, sitting in for Graham, and I'm delighted to say I've been joined by Nick from Argyle Life to discuss all things Sunderland and Plymouth. Nick, how you doing, mate?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, really well, really well. A lot's changed since Sunderland last played Plymouth all the way back at the start of November. At the time, it was we were coming towards the end of our really nice win streak, and you guys were right down there in League One. So I was just wanting to get a sense of what's changed in the last 4 months.
Not too much has changed. Our current position is very much as a result of our form since Burton, since the final game of 2018. We went on a run of winning, I think it was 5 out of 5, but the performances weren't actually all that fantastic, really. The big difference was that all of a sudden we just started finishing chances. I can't really say that I usually expect that an uptake in results is equated, it's because of an uptake in performances, but it just really wasn't that. Ruben Lemiris out of nowhere just started finishing, not every chance that came his way, obviously, but he just went on goal spree. And we had others who started to chip in. And even though we weren't really creating any great chances with much consistency, the goals just kept coming in. And with that came the points. Things have started to slow down a bit, and especially in recent weeks. Before we played Rochdale, who are quite frankly they were just a shambles. I think if you look at the PAFC hashtag from Saturday, half the comments were "what a performance" and the other half were "oh my word, how poor were Rochdale." But if you take Rochdale out of the equation, you're looking at one open play goal in 5 games. It really sums up that continued relatively poor level of performance but high level of finishing. My worry is that as we're coming out of that, you get those spells of finishing where a player hits form, they just start putting the chances away. My worry is that as we come out of that period of good finishing, the results are going to drop off again because obviously the performances weren't there until then.
Yeah, we've kind of had a similar thing where at the start of the season, especially on that win streak, that we went on November, December time, where Madger was just scoring goals through people's legs, burying any chance he got anywhere in the box. He was on fire, and I think part of that is just that the guy's really talented. He's just got a knack for putting the ball in the net. But
certainly seems that way.
Yeah, all the analytics models, all the betting models were like, watch out, you're going to come back down to earth at some point. And I think the one thing we've got, which allows us to get away with it a bit more, is we've just got a lot of good individual players. Because if it wasn't Madger, maybe it would be Maguire one week. If it wasn't Maguire, maybe it would have been McGeady's the obvious one, and he's the one who's obviously just re-hit form now. And then Lyndon Gooch at the start of the season looked like a Terminator, not so much anymore. But we kind of have a similar thing where we had a run of 10 games where we only scored 1 goal per game that we've just come out of now. And that was kind of a similar thing where it was a bit like coming back down to earth. The finishing bug kind of went away.
I know what you mean, because having seen the way you played and throughout the season, in particular that game against Argyle, so the one opportunity I got to sit down and watch the full 90 and look specifically how you play, I must admit I was a bit disappointed, because you compare it to Blackburn and Wigan last season, and their approach was that they both built teams that very much dominated possession, but combined that with creative attacking football to cut through teams. So when Wigan visited us last season, they were ruthless. They just cut on through our midfield on a number of occasions. Their teams were made up of those players who broke the midfield line with a high-risk pass or a dribble and created the space to attack the defence. And to my mind, Sunderland haven't really done that. When I've watched their highlights, I didn't really see you creating big chances by cutting through the defence. It seems an awful lot like you're relying on set pieces, crosses, and like you said, those brilliant finishes, the shots from Maguire and McGeady outside the box. It's part of the reason why I don't think Rook will perform as well for you, because I don't think you need a finisher. I think it's your midfield and your style of play. And, Honeyman, Casimir, and Ledbeth are all quite fine at maintaining possession and will work hard to protect the defence. But I don't see any as creative players in the sort they're going to make a late... Honeyman makes good late runs into the box and scores, but I don't think they offer the same sort of incisive passing and dribbling that you need to really stand out and top the league, like Luton do.
Yeah, we're definitely struggling for an identity, whether that's sort of the whole overhaul of the amount of players that came in and out, Jack Ross coming in, but we've definitely struggled for an identity all season. And luckily, we've got so much individual talent; it hasn't burnt us too much, and we're still well in the hunt coming. But that's definitely true that we're struggling for an identity, because at the start of the season, it was very much I think we really tried to sort of impose our will to prove we're the best team in the league. A lot of short passing, a lot of pressing, a lot of trying to dominate the ball. And what we found was we were struggling to earn the right to play. We were conceding a lot of early goals. We were conceding. Yeah, I think we had a problem where, especially our defenders, would want too many touches on the ball. They'd want to, they'd go away from home and they'd expect to sort of be able to settle into games. And like, we got hit with an early goal against Wimbledon, hit with an early goal against Gillingham. I feel as if maybe we were a bit arrogant in our approach, and I feel we made a real conscious effort, especially sort of around the time of our win streak, to maybe a bit more direct, maybe a bit more safety first, maybe try and play the percentages a bit. And to be fair, it worked for a while. But you're right. I mean, part of the problem was Maguire and McGeady kind of, and maybe two of our best attackers, and they're both players who want to play in front of the defence and want to sort of try and take people on and create that bit of magic and wait for the perfect pass. And I kind of, for a while, felt, we need to stop playing these two. But like, we switched up formations. We sort of dropped Maguire out of the squad at one point, and nothing really seemed to work. We still seemed to struggle. And then against Accrington, when we drew toward them, Maguire came on at half-time, changed the game, and you thought, actually, we're onto something here. Maguire, like, being dropped, lit a fire up his arse. He's going to go for it, and then he goes down 2-2
injured. Just a few weeks back.
Yeah, and then he goes down injured game after that, and we're sort of back to square one, really. But yeah, no, that's been a big bonus, set pieces, because we didn't score from any all season long, and now Grant Ledbett has come into the team, and he's just completely transformed us to a team that now look dangerous from set pieces. We brought in Jimmy Dunn as well, who's a big, tall lad, and that's gone from being a weakness to a strength really overnight. So that's, maybe something. But yeah, no, that the lack of runners into the box is definitely a thing. And sort of like Honeyman being injured when sort of the goals dried up, I thought maybe he changed that, and he kind of hasn't since he came back.
I'd say you talk about the set pieces. First off, I mean, look at England World Cup. Being set piece side isn't necessarily a bad thing, and a lot of lower league teams get a lot of traction out of that. And in particular, I think that might be a really good source for you against Argyle, because it's so Carl Leatherhan. One of the big trends that people will point to since Burton, since that upturn in form, is Carl Leatherhan's entrance into the team. And I debate that to an extent, because I think some of the things are correlation, not causation, that people are, they're saying that he's this when he's not. But he's certainly been better at shot stopping. But his main weakness has been dealing with crosses and set. Sorry, I just had a microwave ping in the background. Dealing with crosses and set pieces. If you want a prime example of that, you just need to look at our 1-0 defeat to Wickham. And the goal in particular, there's no pressure on him. Ball whipped into the 6-yard area. He comes, he misses it, or rather, I actually think it's flicked away from him before he even gets there. But he's just not commanding in his area, especially from crossing and set pieces. So I'll be surprised if you didn't get one from that route, given your recent trend and our keeper's apparent weakness in that area.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, we're just so happy, because it was like getting to the point where you can almost feel the groans when we had corners, and we couldn't really put our finger on why why it was going so badly. So that has been a big change. I was wanting to touch on sort of Plymouth's season, because I was having a look and you guys were 9th favourites coming into the season, missed out on the playoffs last year. I was just sort of wanting to get a sense sort of what Plymouth fans have made of this year. Is there a disappointment? Has this been a reality check? Sort of, what have you guys made of your season so far?
So, I mean, obviously there isn't a unified opinion among the fan base. You've got about, I'm sure there's about 50 different competing strands and ideas, ranging from Adams's problem to it's all James Brent's fault, which was always ridiculous. He's the former chairman. He brought in, let's call it austerity, i.e. let's not spend more than we earn sort of thing. But certain people have effectively claimed that he was siphoning money out of the club, which he wasn't. He just wasn't spending what we didn't have, and he didn't have money to put into the club. But so aside from those wider theories, I mean, so last season our run to the playoffs was basically predicated on a really good team. Just the starting 11 was excellent. So we had Ryan Taylor. These names going to probably mean nothing to you, I should imagine, or at least your listeners anyway. We had a guy called Ryan Taylor up front. He's very good at holding the ball up. He's very good in the way he moves the ball around. We had David Fox sitting as our deepest line midfielder, sort of a PLO role. He's got a lot of defensive weaknesses. Yeah, he's the one name I thought you'd know. David Fox sitting deep, very good passer, but clear defensive weaknesses. And so we protected him with Jamie Ness. We had Jamie Ness and Anthony Sarswich just ahead. Those two did all the defensive work, but they're not really as good with the ball. So, Fox, what we did was we accentuated each other's strengths. Fox brought the passing, they brought the hard work, the defence, the mobility, the late runs into the box, especially from Sarswich. But the two key figures in that run, Graham Carey, Ruben Lamiras, they were just floating inside forwards. They'd turn up wherever they liked, really. They wouldn't play as orthodox wingers. You'd often see two on one wing and none on the other. And this system was just fantastic. It was basically built around Carey and Lamiras will create chances for players in the team. I think they averaged about well over one each a game, which sounds like not much, but over the course of the season, that's a lot. Sorry. And so rather than having a key goal scorer, we'd have people creating chances for everyone, which is how we spread the goals around. That team has played a grand total of 0 minutes this season. That team was essentially that front six, rather, Taylor, Fox, Sarswich, Ness, Carey, Lamiras, 0 minutes together through injury and selection choices, basically. That's a main reason why Argyle failed to live up to the early season hype. If you could go back and read Argyle Life's ultimate season preview, I think we had them around 10th or 11th, but just hasn't happened. That's been my main reason why we haven't been up there anywhere near as we were last season, as much we probably should have been. But there have been good trends to come through. So Freddie Ladapo were debatable. You've got large portions of the fan base who are very much in favour of him, say he's outright our best striker just based on his goal scoring record. You've got the rest of us who would turn around and say Taylor makes Karen Lamiras play better, and Karen Lamiras can create chances off him, which makes the entire team better. So unsurprisingly, Karen Lamiras' chance creation is down. In fact, minus Rochdale, I think they've made about one open play chance between them in 5 games, which really sums up their more limited influence. If you're going to look at why Argyle are suffering, it's because last season we got the ball into their feet in advanced positions, and this season they're picking up in wider, deeper positions. They're having to carry it further. They're having fewer midfield runners around them to pick out. They've just got to do more work to create chances, and that's been the main issue, which is why when we've had periods of good finishing, that's what's propelled us up.
And has Ladapo been an automatic pick pretty much the whole way through the season? Has it always been him, and then whoever else is fit around him, or has Taylor been tried in place of him?
Taylor started the season. He played the first 2 games. We lost, but we really should have won. I mean, looking back on the opening day of the season against Walsall, we really should have won that game. It was a decent performance. There was nothing especially wrong with it, but the next performance wasn't very good against Southend. Not sure how we drew it. Conversely, we probably should have lost 4-0. And then the next game after that, Ladapo came in just for the cup against Bristol City. We won 1-0. Ladapo didn't play especially well. He was playing up against 2 fullbacks and still didn't win most of his headers. fullbacks and centre-backs, that is. But then, because we won, Derek Adams does not like to change a winning team, and he stayed in the team. And Ladapo just hasn't been dropped ever since. But large part of that was Taylor getting injured, but Taylor should have been brought back in before then. And since I think he was a bit too afraid to drop Ladapo because he was in good goal scoring form. I think it's also because he likes him. And Ladapo Taylor's been fit now since I think it must be November, since we lost 5-1 to Luton. But Taylor started alongside him a couple of times, but otherwise it's been Ladapo first choice. And really, Ladapo, there are times when he should have been dropped because Taylor's come off the bench and improved things in a number of games. Not that they've necessarily affected good results, but you're not always going to affect a good result, even if you've had a good performance. But Ladapo, like you say, has been undroppable, really. I think in Adams' mind, he is probably undroppable now. And I'm not sure if he's quite as good as Adams. I think Adams rates him as one of the best strikers in the division, and he's possibly a very good finisher. He's got fantastic movement, but his finishing itself isn't actually that great, and his general play is nowhere near the same. That's harsh. It's not as good as Taylor's. It has a negative impact on the way we play. So I expect when we play Sunderland at the weekend, Sunderland will probably hold more of the ball. You'll see more long balls up to Ladapo. Ladapo has improved the rate at which he wins aerial duels in recent weeks. I think it's jumped from 30% to 40% since January. But he's still not especially good at guiding that to a teammate. And he's still not especially good at actually holding up and bringing players into play at the right time. So he might make a few passes here and there, but they're not going to be as effective, they're not going to be as effective, basically.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised that Ladapo isn't sort of seen as the main man, because he's obviously the first name on the team sheet that sort of stands out. I remember we were linked with him on deadline day.
Yeah,
we were linked with everyone on deadline day. But I remember sort of looking at his goal scoring record, remembering the 2 times I saw him, that even though he sort of flitted in and out of the games, that his touch was so good that he looks like really good.
Very good.
Really,
he's a good dribbler. Okay, first touch isn't good. It's another thing where he's way up on Taylor. He can take on a man and beat him quite easily. He's got the speed. He's not only got the speed, because a lot of strikers have the speed, but he's got the skill with the ball at his feet to actually take on and beat someone. But first touch wise, playing the ball into him, not very good. I think a fair few times in our player ratings, he's been described as having the touch of a trampoline. So,
okay, it must be the close control that's sort of winning me over, because it was him and Grant at Home Park, and I think both of them had pretty good games. I think with both of them, their final ball let them down a couple of times, but both of them sort of against Baldwin and Flanagan had their moments where we were sort of on our back foot, especially in the first half when the game was quite open. I remember thinking, "God, these two are a bit better than what we've been used to playing against."
I find it surprising you say that, because I personally thought Sunderland were in a lot more control in that first half. I thought it was from the moment you scored that we looked like we had a bit more control of possession, and we pushed forward. Until then, we barely registered a threat. So I'm surprised you say that. But being that, I suppose the difference is that you're sat there worrying what we're going to do, and we're sat there worrying what you're going to do. So we're probably focusing on.
Yeah, I think that's probably it. I remember as well, it was like at the first half, I remember sort of thinking, God, nothing's happened here. And then looking at my phone, looking at sort of the writers' chat, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, it's a really good game, this." Like, both teams are knocking it about. And I remember thinking, well, I was quite bored. Like, it was a weird game. It was a weird game. But yeah, like,
weren't many chances, because I think Maguire had a shot from about 40 yards. And I think there might have been a close range effort. So I can't quite remember but there weren't really any chances until McGeady smashed it in from about 20 yards on the angle.
Yeah,
nothing really happened chance creation wise. It was a bit of a midfield battle and long shots. That was about it.
I think it was just after we beat Southend 3-0 with Maguire scoring like the most ridiculous 30-yard top corner screamer, and it felt a bit like we were having it felt a bit like we were having a goal of the season competition rather than trying to win a football match at times. I think him and Gooch were both really doing my head in with some of the shots they were taking. But yeah, that McGeady goal's one that I rewatched it yesterday, and I forgot how good it was. I forgot like quite how far away from goal he was. It was just like an arrow.
Weaker foot too, straight into the corner. It was a fantastic shot. I'll tell you, we scored some good goals against Rochdale. Just just last weekend. We I tell you, eight goals wouldn't have been unfair. Rochdale were a shambles. I imagine a fair few Sunderland fans can look at that and think, oh, they're right in top form. But there are two sides to look at it. One, Rochdale were really bad. Within about 10 minutes, you could see Argyle was starting to swarm around them. But then you look at our three behind Ladapo, Sarcevic, Lamiris, and Carey had fantastic games.
Yeah.
It was like they were just it was almost like they'd been prepped. They knew that Rochdale had weaknesses, and they just set out to expose them. They kept trying to play intricate balls through the midfield. They kept taking them on, dribbling past them. But it was helped by the fact that this reference will probably be lost on some of your listeners, but it was like playing three David Foxes in midfield, and that all of them could pass, all of them were quite comfortable on the ball, but their defensive positioning, it was far too easy to suck them out of position, run into the position, and then pass it into them. And that was very much the source of our play.
Yeah, we played them ages ago, and I just remember it being one of those games where they kept the ball, we didn't really look at it, and then they just made three ridiculous defensive headers, and we were 3-0 up like 10 minutes before half time, and that was the game. They just
what I would recommend going back and watching their red card, because it's as hilarious as it is stupid. I mean, it's Ethan Evanks-Landell, who quite frankly shouldn't be in League One after the season he had last year. He slips over. I think he tries to intercept a through ball from Lamiris. He's not going to get there, so he just sticks his hand up and scoops it away as Ladapo is about to run clean through. It was more. I'm so glad it was sent off, because what a stupid thing to do.
What was the score at this stage?
That was at 1-1. We should have gone in about 3-0 up at half time. And that was right after Ryan Edwards, who'd actually been really good in ever since he came back into the team, really. Played a short back pass, so out of nowhere, Rochdale equalised, having really been rubbish. Then they got on the front foot, look like they can do well. Then they had a man sent off. They still looked like they were going to score. We scored a very debatable goal, because it's quite clear that Carey blocked the clearance with his arm, and it bounced straight to Edwards, who'd given away the goal to slam in. But the question is it intentional handball? How close is he? I would have given the free kick. I don't think it should have stood. And then minutes after, probably a few minutes after that, actually, a header forward by Songo, and their other centre-back, I think it was Delaney, slips and allows Ladapo to run clean through and score again. So two massive errors on their part, and obviously a massive error on our part. Honestly, his defensive errors left, right and central is rubbish. Rubbish defending. We need
more teams like that between now and the end of April. All the defensive errors are welcome for Sunderland. Sort of whilst we were talking about the game and sort of at home park, I think one thing that stood out that a lot of Sunderland fans picked up on was sort of Derek Adams after the game, and he was a little bit salty. I think I read back
that's
through
Derek Adams all over.
Really?
Yeah. There's probably not a football league club that we played against that he hasn't rubbed up the wrong way, including Liverpool for that matter. When we rocked up and drew nil with Liverpool and literally put 11 men behind the ball for the entire game, I think we had our one shot, which flew miles wide. I think our first shot went out for a throw-in. With that defensive, he turned up and said, "Yeah, that was the best defensive display anyone's ever seen at Anfield." I think, as far as I ever remember, that was a direct quote. He said that live on BT to Jake Humphreys, I think.
So what's sort of the opinion of him within Plymouth fans? Is he one of these where it's like, if he's your manager, you love him, or is he sort of someone who's took a bit of flack this season?
He's taken a lot of flack a fair few seasons, actually, because his stupid comments, and I think you would have to term some of them stupid. Like, for example, when we beat Mansfield 2-0, he allegedly he denies it, but Steve Evans came out in his press conference and said that Adams had turned to him and said that he was the best manager outside the Premier League, just to wind him up. Whether he said that or not, it's very much in keeping with his personality. So some of his comments, they don't help him, because not all of the you get the fans who want to fish for reactions and so forth, who really enjoy winding up other opposition fans, but then you get many of us who just look at it and think that's just that does nothing. I mean, I'm just a little bit embarrassed by you saying that. There's no real need. And then so when things go bad, basically the knives are ready whenever things go bad. Earlier in the season, it was, you could barely find a voice saying no, I want Adams to stay. There were some, but they were very quiet. They came back out obviously when the results turned around, but I don't think people will be too disappointed if Adams left at the end of the season. I know a lot of people have said to me that they think he will. I don't think he's going at all. I think he fits in, number one, with a financial model. He operates really well within that self-sustaining model that we're trying to run with. I think that's a major reason why he'll stay. Another is that he has been successful. You can't deny that. And so even when I really wanted to say Adams out, I think I uttered it a few times, but in general, he's a net positive for the club. Even if the club's playing poorly, we could bring in someone else who wouldn't be able to do as well with the limited resources. I think that's the key thing too.
Okay, yeah, that's good, because that is something else I wanted to touch on, is that kind of been Plymouth's model, because obviously I think with a lot of Sunderland fans will remember sort of the tussles that we had with you guys sort of 10, 12 years ago when we were last in the Championship, sort of under Keane and McCarthy, and Plymouth sort of being one of these teams that were kind of fighting out towards the bottom of the Championship. And obviously you've had struggles in the past with finances. Has that kind of been the transition now to where you're doing things a bit smarter? Or
so what basically happened was around, so we got promoted 2003, 2004. First two, I think it was the first, off the top of my head, because I haven't looked at these stats in a while, but the first 2 seasons we sort of operated within this financial model of, we'll invest a bit more, but not going over the top. But then Holloway came in and he increased the spending. Ian Holloway, I assume that you all know is. Holloway came in, he increased the spending. He got us to the quarterfinals of the FA Cup in his season. Things were looking up. We were knocking on the door of the playoffs for a bit, and then dropped away. Oh no, we didn't. We had a really good end to the season. That was it. Then the next season we were running well. We must have been around 8th when he left us for Leicester. And we just got to the stage where people started to believe, and that belief really didn't help in the end, because it meant that the top to bottom, everyone wanted to invest more money to just bridge that gap and get promotion. We were close to the playoffs at the end of that season, and had it not been for a mass exodus in January, we would have. And essentially that just went on and on until eventually, it always happens, finances don't guarantee success. And so we spent a lot of money on a bunch of players who weren't very good, and all of a sudden we're in a relegation scrap. We have to get rid of all these players, but no one wants to take them on, and we've got massive debts now piling up. I think we ended up with £18 million worth of debt compared to a turnover of 10 million, which, I mean, doesn't sound too much compared to most Championship teams, but for us it just was a lethal combination. We got relegated, we still had a lot of big earners on, and it just went like that until eventually we got relegated from League One, having been in administration. That was what took us down. We had to sell virtually the entire team, and it took a long time to rebuild that model. Even with the self-sustaining model, we ran deficits the first 2 years, but in the last 4 years, Brent first and now Hallett have stabilised the club. So we are looking at a, only spend what you have model. And for now, currently it's working. But I think a lot of that has got to be down to Adams, because it hasn't been investment to help him build the squad. What he's done is he's brought in free agents. Graham Carey in particular is the most notable one. He's brought in free agents who have improved the team without blowing the budget. I can't see us ever leaving that model under the current premiership of Hallett. It's only if a big investor comes in, which we've been waiting for quite a while now.
Yeah.
Having said that, the last one to do that were the Japanese, who came in and destroyed us in the first place.
Wow.
They were it was the Japanese consortium. I can't remember who. Kagami, maybe. I can't remember the names of them. Having said, they were building on the trends that had been going for a while of spending more, but they just weren't willing to cover the losses.
Yeah. That always seems to be the way. Sort of grand ideas when football clubs get ruined, always seems to be just flying too close to the sun.
Exactly.
Going for it, and then all of a sudden, well, it's not their club. If it all goes wrong, it's not their problem for too long.
I mean, also it's like, you've got this long-term problem. It just takes that one short-term trigger, and then it's going to explode the entire situation. So, we were running more and more deficits. It just took, one situation where we were short of money, they weren't willing to invest it, and then gone. And a lot of Championship clubs currently are running a model that's, dangerous, and a few of them are going to get stung.
Yeah.
Portsmouth obviously had the same problem, where they had big debts and owners came in and then just wouldn't pay up or couldn't pay up. So it's something that obviously you've got your own history with bad finances.
Yeah, we've still got contracts that no one wants to touch on our books. I mean, Catamol, to be fair, he's come back into the team and he's doing well, but the plan was not for him to be here this season. But
Yeah,
football
absolutely.
clubs are getting smarter now. It's like people saw him in the Championship last year and didn't want anything to do with him. Even McGeady, who's brilliant, the plan was probably for him not to be here.
Yeah.
But Championship clubs, ambitious Championship clubs, will look at him at 32, think about how long he's been playing football, and think, well, we can't really play him in the Premier League, and he's just not quite worth those wages to us. I mean,
It's also like you look at the money that's coming into the Championship now. They can reach abroad and get more and more foreign players. So, and then the League One clubs can't afford them, so there's no incentive for them to leave.
yeah,
Like Jack Rodwell, no one really wanted to touch him, and why would he? I mean, as horribly selfish as it was, and I think we're all absolutely watch. I mean, I'm not going to probably bring up the Netflix documentary because I'm sure everyone who comes on talks about it every week, but just watching that was. I can't imagine there are many fans across the country who weren't shaking their heads in disbelief at that.
yeah. Well, he was. Yeah, it got to the point where we were sick of him, we were fed up with him. But then he did the Daily Mail interview in sort of November, saying, talking about all the sort of ways he'd been wronged by the club and stuff. And it's like, what are you talking about?
It doesn't add up.
Yeah.
Even if you have been wronged by the club, you're the net negative there.
Yeah.
I'm sure the club has done some things to damage you in some ways, but you are the more of the problem than they are.
Yeah, no, it's crazy because Martin Bain is probably sort of 70%, 80% disliked in Sunderland, but I think every fan had sympathy with him for that bit on deadline day where he slams the door shut because Rodwell's staying. That was like his Q rating must have probably tripled in Sunderland in like the few weeks after that, just because of that moment. Because it was like, oh yeah, we can. As much as we didn't like what he did, we can completely relate to that in that moment. But yeah, no, the Rodwell stuff I knew was going to annoy me. Lewis Grab and revealing himself to be that much of a prick was a bit of a shocker. But the Rodwell stuff, we all saw coming.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I thought Bain came across quite well on the documentary, but then I listened to. Well, obviously, I assumed that he wasn't come across that well in real life because when you look at the stewardship that he was manning, the way he's running the club and what happened to the club, he's got to be a main factor in what's happening there. But still, I thought he came out well on the documentary. But then, obviously, listen to last week's ROKER report, Gas Chat, and listen to I can't who was standing in last week.
It would have been Graham. Graham's the usual host.
Yeah, listening to him saying that he thought he was a good actor, I thought that's quite the accusation to make. Well, are you sort of in line with that? You thought he came off better than he should have, or?
I'm sure he cared. I think the problem I had is it looks like on the documentary, and sort of the full well 73 guys have said this in interviews, they thought he had an impossible job. My argument is he made the job 10 times harder than it needed to be with the appointments he made, with the people he put around him, with the lack of a transfer strategy he had in place, with the way he handcuffed managers. So it's like, yeah, he had an incredibly difficult job that he was carrying out, but he made it harder on himself through the bad decisions he made. And that was stuff that predates the Netflix documentary, stuff like appointing David Moyes, firing people to clear the way for Simon Grayson, who then wasn't really like. It's quite funny in the documentary when he's talking about how he brought in all these players on small wages for small fees to Preston, and it's like he did the absolute opposite here.
Yeah.
He brought in a load of players on frees on big wages that were well past their peak, and it's like, we would have quite liked that, Simon. You might have survived a bit longer if you'd done your pressing thing here.
It's like, that's very much what Derek Adams has done very well for Argyle, which is picking up your bargain transfers really and turning them into something, and really playing to their strengths. That's one of Adams's key abilities, or it's what he's done very well. So take Sonny Bradley, for example. He was, as far as I remember, he was heading for a National League side when he joined us in League Two. Yeah, we played a deep line. He's the obvious weakness is that he's very tall. He's very good in the air, but he's very slow. He's slow to turn. So we played a deep line. We didn't let people get in and around behind him. He dominated the box. We forced him to put crosses in. He headed them away. And we're a very set-piece oriented side. We put lots of set pieces into him. He scored 7 goals first season. I think it's 3 goals second season. And ended up moving to Luton, who've done a very similar thing, but a different way. But his weakness is being run at by people. So what do? They dominate possession. They crowd around and don't let people to run directly at him. So Adams has done that with a lot of players. Just bring them in, play to their strengths, and let them shine and do what they're good at. So,
do you think the approach to the game away from home will change at all from Adams? Because, like we sort of touched on earlier, it was quite an open game. I mean, you guys really poured it on at 1-0 after we scored, and it felt like you really tried to sort of take us on at home. Do you think you'll be a bit more cautious, or can we expect similar?
I'm expecting cautious for one very simple reason is that we've been far more cautious away from home. If you look at our sorry, if you look at our recent performances, well, I think you'd see that our winning streak was very much based around winning at home more than anything else. We take more shots at home, we complete more passes at home. I'm not sure if it's the home crowd, if it's the way he's setting up to play, if other sides are coming down and being more defensive when they get to home park. I'm not entirely sure, but we're far more open at home and we're a more dangerous side. We play deeper when we're away. Your classic just shut up shop and then try to get something on the counter and treat it as though it's hostile territory and you should be going for a point's good on the road and win at home. I don't think it's quite that, but away performances have definitely been different to home performances. Like we've had 0-0 with Bradford, created nothing. Peterborough, we looked very, very, to be honest, we didn't look like creating anything until they had a man stupidly sent off at half-time for slapping our player in the face. He was the guy who was separating them as well. From Ivan Toney tried to get in Ryan Edwards' face. Lee Tomlin, who'd probably been the best player on the pitch, bar Toney until then, walked over, broke them up, and then not completely threw his elbow in the face, but more than enough to warrant a second yellow card. And from then on, we looked good. But until then, we've been poor. Wickham didn't score, barely created. Long shot from distance hit the post. Same as Bradford. Southend's the only difference, and that's partly because they played a suicidal high line. I think they played it against a few teams this season. The suicidal high line didn't help them on a number of occasions, but otherwise you just keep going back. Burton 1-1 draw, should have lost 3-0. 2-0 actually would have been fair. Didn't deserve to score. Wimbledon lost. They just are away from home, not as good as at home. And that's the main reason why I expect Sunderland to be more of a favourite going into this than they were earlier in the season.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shame, really, because we've had just a series of games. I think everyone, because we probably got one of the bigger pitches in League One, we extended it in the summer, I think, to max it out after Grayson. Grayson wanted us to play narrow last year, and a lot of teams they'll give us the first 40 yards, they'll let our centre-backs have it, and they'll just try and cut off balls into midfield. They'll try and force our centre-backs to beat them, and one of the frustrating things has been watching our centre-backs kind of think that they're Franz Beckenbauer and continuously ping 40-yard balls out of play for throw-ins. But that dynamic sort of, that's a bit annoying. I was hoping, especially coming off your thump in the Rochdale, you might go for it, and it might make for an open game, which is something we tend to do well in because we've got a good shot stopper goalkeeper. If the game's open, it tends to be our lads who come out on top. But if it's going to be another arm wrestle, it could be a long afternoon.
What you're likely to see is, I think one of the main reasons is when you look at our midfield, and we have work. Actually, something I've just realised that I haven't mentioned yet is that Sarcevic, who's been very important in this run that we've been on, is suspended. He's suspended for the next 2 games, so we're not actually sure what formation we're going to see on Saturday because we don't have a like-for-like to come in to replace him. He's a bit similar to Honeyman, I'd say, in that he's good at making late runs into the box, but he's more of a midfielder playing in an advanced position than he is, say, like a creator playing an Ozil position, for example. We don't really have anyone else. Yeah. We don't have anyone else who's going to come in and play like that. Particularly anyone else who's obviously fit. What we probably do have, I'd imagine the choice will be to bring in Oscar Threlkel, who's a defensive midfielder, and play 3 more defensive midfielders. So we're taking out another attacking influence and playing even deeper. But that's something we're going to have to wait and see because I really don't know what he'll do to fill that gap. I don't know if we have a different formation, especially for Sunderland. He deliberately changed the formation to a diamond to match up their diamond. So I'd still it could well be a 4-3-2-1 in the sense, or a 4-3-3 more likely. That sees Fox deepest and Threlkeld and Songo ahead of him, just shutting everyone down, defending and closing things down. I would really expect to see a tough, rugged game, but that could change based around who actually throws in. He could put a second striker up there and throw a complete curveball in, though I doubt it.
How are Plymouth defensively general this season? How have you guys got on in terms of, are you going to be the team that ends our 40-odd game streak of scoring in league games?
Have you got a 40-game streak of scoring in league games?
It's something crazy like that. We scored in every game this season, and we're the only team in England to have done that.
Which is
And
really
I think
surprising.
maybe like the last 10 games under Coleman last year, once he changed formation and we kind of had nothing to lose. It's a stupid streak. 40 might be too much, but it
gives off the impression. Yeah. So I mean, first question is going to be defensive errors dogged us. It was terrible in the early part of the season. Our centre backs and our wider defence in particular just kept giving away good chances. Not all of them were taken, obviously, but we've really curtailed that in the last month. Bar Rochdale, which we saw two absolute howlers from Edwards. Twice he ended up playing a short pass back. I can't see that happening again, but I mean, with errors, you never know. Putting those aside, because they haven't really been a feature of our games recently, our biggest weaknesses are defensive mids. Fox is weak defensively, and both of them, Fox and Songo, are very easy to draw out of position. Songo's your all-action player. Lots of the fan base absolutely love him because he always looks like he's doing something. I would contend that he's actually making more. He's making more defensive work for himself to do, and it'd be better off, bringing out Songo and putting in someone who's more skilled, better on the ball, who will give the opposition fewer chances to run at him. But nevertheless, we saw even against, I think it was against Portsmouth. I think it was Bradford from a throw-in. He's the right defensive midfielder, and yet he ended up being the furthest left player on the pitch. And 2 passes later, they were running clean through. Well, not clean. They'd worked into the centre and put a player clean through, only for a fantastic last-ditch challenge from Canavan to deny a one-on-one shot. And that's all from Songo just getting drawn across for a throw-in, when he should have just held his position and not allowed them to occupy the space that he should have been occupying himself. We've seen that most with Fox. Fox has got a lot of weaknesses defensively. He's your classic aging, deep line playmaker. The reason he worked last season is we properly protected him. This season we don't. And so in the first half of the season, we saw a lot of attacks coming down our right when Fox was right defensive midfielder. Now he's left defensive midfielder. We see a lot more attacks coming down our left. There's no coincidence in that. I'd expect you to find spaces down the left, running at Soy, who himself is quite slow and can be done by quick wingers. I'd expect that to be your best route.
on that side, so it'll be him using his craft. Unfortunately, Reece James doesn't really. He's sort of very much your old school sort of 2000s fullback. He can cross it a bit. He's very good defensively, but he's not the sort who's going to torch a slow player.
Wait, is that on the? Isn't he a left back?
Our left, sorry, yeah.
Oh yeah, I was going to say no. It's our left. You're right.
Okay,
sorry, you're right. Sorry, left back, left defensive mid, and left back.
We might be starting Lewis Morgan.
Morgan will cause some trouble. He's quick. He's good at. See, I think that Sawyer would be fine with McGeady because McGeady's got the skill, but Sawyer's a very smart defender.
Yeah.
Sawyer's weakness is when people stand him up and actually take him on for speed. Morgan will be more of a threat to Sawyer because of that. And then, of course, you'll also be looking at set pieces and hopefully not hopefully, from your perspective, I don't want that to happen, but for you, catching out Leatheran, especially with balls in and around his 6-yard area, that's where you're going to find, I think, your most danger, most chance of scoring.
Morgan sort of torched. He came on with like 20 minutes to go against Rovers and he absolutely torched tired legs. It was like something we'd not really seen all season, or at least not since Gooch dropped out of form, but that was great to see. Just
created that sitter for Wyke.
Oh my god, yeah. No, we've been discussing Charlie Wyke at length, and it's we've seen it happen so much with players, and you can tell they've got ability, but they just can't handle the weight of being a striker for Sunderland, where it's Altidore, Danny Graham, countless others. He just feels like he's going to be another one of these, except we're in League One this time, but just another one of these strikers who probably has a fine career at other places, but it just never happens for it at Sunderland. I mean, it's early days, but yeah, it's not looking great for him, because you can tell he's got technique and talent, but he's all at sea at the moment. It's horrible to watch. But yeah, no, what I wanted to very quickly touch on before we sort of wrap things up and get predictions in was, we're coming towards the end of the season. You obviously know your stuff when it comes to League One. I was wondering how you sort of see the automatic promotion spots playing out, who's impressed you down at Home Park, and what you've sort of made of the team so far. I've got a feeling you're going to give me bad news, but I was curious to sort of know how you see things playing out.
So I've seen every game this season, bar one, which was FA Cup game against Stevenage. I think Luton to be honest, I'm not sure it's even that debated by anyone. I think Luton, based on in particular their performance against us, the way they've been tearing teams to shreds, their general performance levels, I'd be amazed if they aren't promoted.
Yeah,
I'll be surprised, but not quite amazed if they don't win the league. They haven't necessarily got the best. They've got very good individual players, but what they've done is they managed to craft them perfectly into an amazing team. It's similar to what Argyle did last year, in that they put together a collection of players to make a really good team that's very hard to beat. I think that's why they're going to win the league. But I'm really undecided on who comes after that. I think Portsmouth's biggest issue has been their midfield, especially since Ben Thompson left.
Yeah.
He went back to Millwall. They haven't looked the same since. They've got less control. It's a bit similar to Argyle, really. They had Lowe and Curtis, wasn't it? Causing trouble. They're now picking up from wider positions, deeper positions, very similar to Kerry and Lemiras. Not quite the same, but similar. And their impact has been reduced since. I think Portsmouth are dropping out of it. I think it's a two-horse race between you and Barnsley, and to be honest, I can't tell, because I think I'm not really sure what to make of Barnsley. Barnsley actually weren't very good when we played them.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people on this podcast talk about sort of how good Barnsley were, how good their football was. When we played them, it was sort of, I think it would have been maybe a few weeks after we played you, and like we beat them 4-2, and I remember like a lot of people like, oh, the way they came and played up here, best team we played against. And I remember thinking they weren't that great. I mean, we kind of talked. It was our best performance of the season, but I was a bit surprised at how bad they were.
We missed 2 1-on-1s. You know, to quickly going back to Ladapo, he's missed an awful lot of 1-on-1s this season.
Yeah.
2 of those came against Barnsley, as well as another very presentable chance. And we had a couple other good chances too. Having said that, they had to change their formation at some point during the first half, and they moved. I think it's Kenny Dougal or something like that. I can't quite remember his name. There's probably a Barnsley fan laughing right now. They moved a player out of position to left back, as I remember.
Yeah,
and they didn't look quite as good. They moved him from midfield to left back. They didn't look quite as good after that. So that was reasonably early in the game, half an hour in. So hard to tell. To be honest, I think I'm edging towards Barnsley, because I've heard how they have performed very well against other sides. They've got a very good midfield, even if they did sell Brad Potts in January, and they've got two very good strikers in Moore and Woodrow, isn't it now?
Yeah, Moore caused us absolute, loads of problems. Scored twice, could have scored more. We just didn't have anyone to match up against him, because he's not only big and strong, but he was deceptively mobile, or at least compared to our centre backs he was. And
reminds me a tad of Carl Lafferty, if you ever watched him play for Rangers.
Yeah, I can see that. He's obviously, the one thing with Lafferty is the goals sort of come in drips and drabs, but Moore's been up there, hasn't he, this season? Yeah, no, it's going to be really interesting. It's hard for me to say, because you see these teams twice a year and you see their goals on Quest, and that's about it.
Yeah,
but, I'm interested to hear what other fans think.
I went for Sunderland at the start of the season, but it's just because I just don't see your chance creation being good enough, and I think that you're going to see a slowdown in your points per game. When you rely on good finishing rather than good chance creation, like we are currently, you're liable to those dramatic drops in points per game, and I think that's what's going to hit you in the end. I think that's why I'm going for Barnsley.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. And I'd love to be able to argue against you and think of tons of examples why. Who knows? Who knows? We've kept up the pace this far. But anyway, score prediction for Saturday.
2-1 Sunderland, I think. I think given Argyle's relatively poor away form, quite poor away performances as well. But I'd be surprised. Yeah, I think I'll just go with 2-1. Honestly, it's not every time I predict Argyle to. Well, it's not quite every time, but I have a record currently predicting Argyle to lose and they win, predicting Argyle to win and they lose. So that could be another repeat of that. But I'd very much be thinking that Sunderland should win this one. There are holes that they can exploit, and Argyle aren't especially good away from home.
Yeah, I think I'll go 1-0. I think I'll go 1-0. I mean, like you said, we're not blowing teams away at the moment, but we do have this great goal scoring streak. And if it's going to be an ugly nip and tuck game, I'll back one of our class attackers to do something, or maybe Grant Ledbitter's going to ping one onto someone's head, and I'll go 1-0. Lee Catmull, oh my! He scored at the back post in the corner in our last home game. I think he's on 4th.
Did I see that was his first ever goal at the Stadium of Light?
That's mad. That's mad.
That is stupid.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair to him, there was a point that, he's been at Sunderland for nearly 10 seasons, but there was at least 2 of them where he was a quality defensive midfielder. The less said about the other 8, the better. But there were times where he was very good for us, and he's stayed through the bad times and the good. So we'll not slander him. We'll not slander him. I'll get enough stick. We'll not slander Lee Catmull to finish. Nick, thanks so much for joining me, and thanks everyone for listening in. Yeah, no, you're welcome. You're welcome. And everyone, keep it tuned to the ROKER Report podcast. We've got lots of great stuff coming up in the near future. So everyone, thanks a lot for listening, and that's me checking out with the XTRA podcast.
Some exchange betting companies run short-lived promotions, like month-long offers of low commission. At BetDAG, we wanted to change the way we did things, so we set our commission at 2% permanently. That's 2% on football, horse racing, golf, almost any sport. 2%. That's just one way that BetDAG is changing for the better. For the better, like you. BetDAG, the 2% commission exchange.
Over 18s only, please gamble responsibly.